Well, folks, the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv reopened today, 3 months after closing due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The embassy spokesman saying that initially a small number of diplomats will staff the mission.
Meantime, NATO envoys now failing to reach a consensus over whether or not to start membership talks with Finland and Sweden. This comes as Turkey renewed its objection to the two countries joining after security fears with Russia.
So what's the implication of NATO with Russia? Joining us right now, former Undersecretary of Defense Robert Wilkie. Secretary, tell me what the dynamic is that you're looking at here, because a lot of people feel like for their own safety now, Sweden and Finland have said, you know what, we're going to join NATO.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, Bob, I don't know if I can match two Scaramucci's in my description.
No pressure.
We don't expect you to. I don't think anybody will match that today. That was the mic drop.
That's right. That made my day. Well, let's see what this tilts the battle space in Europe. It puts on Putin's northern flank an active army of 280,000 troops and a reserve force of 900,000. Every Finnish male since the age of 16 is trained to kill Russians. And this is not the plains of Ukraine. These are mountains and forests. The last time that a Soviet dictator, a Russian dictator, invaded Finland in 1939, it was Joseph Stalin, and he lost 380,000 soldiers. The addition of Sweden complicates Russian moves in the Arctic. Sweden has one of the most sophisticated defense industrial bases in the world. I would say that after the United States, Britain, and Israel, it has the most robust defense industrial system. Its planes and its submarines are the best on the planet, and they can play havoc with anything Russia does in the Arctic. And the last thing, if you look at your map, there's a little piece of Russia in blue there that sits in between Poland and Lithuania. That is Kaliningrad. With the addition of Sweden and Finland, that little piece of Russia, which is used by Putin as a military base in the Baltic, is now totally surrounded by NATO waters.
Yeah, and you know, it's very interesting to see Russia is sitting right there. A lot of people don't associate them as being neighbors, as indeed they are. I'm going to have to hold you there a second, sir. We want to go to Jake Sullivan at the White House, or at the Pentagon, I believe, and listen in for a moment.
Korean media is reporting that President Biden will meet with former President Moon Jae-in during his visit to Seoul. Is that accurate?
We don't have a meeting scheduled with President Moon at this time.
Have there been any discussions between U.S. officials and Korean officials about Moon Jae-in potentially taking on a special envoy to North Korea-like role?
I'm not familiar with any discussions along those lines. Yeah.
In the statement today welcoming Finland and Sweden's application to NATO, almost at the very end, it said that while their applications for NATO membership are being considered, the U.S. will work with Finland and Sweden to remain vigilant against any threats to our shared security and deter and confront aggression. Does that mean that the U.S. is extending like the NATO security umbrella to them while their applications are in process?
Article 5 only kicks in once all 30 allies have ratified the accession protocols and they become full-fledged members of the alliance. But the United States is prepared to send a very clear message, as are all of our European allies, that we will not tolerate any aggression against Finland or Sweden during this process. And there are practical measures that we can take along those lines that Secretary Austin will coordinate with his counterparts in both Finland and Sweden. Yeah.
Jake, two questions, one on the accession and one on your trip. So when the initial NATO expansion happened, of course, there was a huge debate in Washington about whether it was a good idea or not. Remember, Ken himself wrote in the New York Times that he wasn't in favor of it. Was there any similar debate that went underway here about whether or not bringing Finland and Sweden in was a good idea, or whether it would further corner Putin? And on the trip, tell us a little bit about what you know on the evidence that North Korea may attempt either a nuclear test, hard to imagine what they would accomplish by a seventh test, or a missile launch, and what your preparations are if that happens during the trip.
On the first question, President Biden posed the question to his national security team, to his cabinet principals, who cover national security as to whether they supported the accession of Finland and Sweden, and for them to consider the risks as well as the benefits of bringing Finland and Sweden into the alliance. Unanimously, President Biden's national security team emphatically supported the entry of Finland and Sweden into the NATO alliance on the grounds that they have already proven themselves as highly capable security partners. In the parlance, we say net security contributors, meaning they give a heck of a lot more than they take when it comes to a security partnership or an alliance. And that we believe that Russian aggression has only reinforced the argument for the kind of defensive alliance that NATO presents and poses. And finally, we have the principle of the open door. And the open door says that if countries meet the criteria of NATO membership and display that they can be net contributors to the alliance and to overall European security, they should be admitted. That is a principle that President Biden has believed since long before he occupied the Oval Office. And Finland and Sweden are two cases that are pretty clear-cut when it comes to meeting those terms. With respect to the issue of North Korea, we've said from this podium, we've said at the State Department, and we've indicated in quite clear terms that our intelligence does reflect the genuine possibility that there will be either
Advisor Jake Sullivan there at the White House. Robert Wilkie, I wanted to get your opinion. It seems as though the threat all along from Russia was to Ukraine, don't you dare join NATO. And now with Sweden and Finland, they say, we're going to join NATO, assuming they let us in. And Russia's almost downplaying it. Why the difference?
Because there's nothing that the Russians can do about it. They have lost 25% of their conventional force in the last 3 months in Ukraine. The notion that they could threaten a country as powerful as Finland and powerful vis-a-vis Russian conventional force is just nonsensical. They are being shown to the world not as a complete paper tiger, but as a bombastic force that is more suited to parades in Red Square than it is to operations against a force that has been trained by Great Britain, the United States, and several of our allies.
Yeah, and one last question for you here. I'm curious, we mentioned a little bit, referenced Turkey a little bit earlier. What would the implications be to Turkey's objection of Finland and Sweden joining NATO?
Well, Erdogan wants to be acknowledged. He wants to be treated as an equal at the table in Europe. I expect that in the next few weeks, these objections will ameliorate themselves. Right now, we just have to play Erdogan's game and remind him that, yes, we do think he's important. He has the second largest army in NATO. They're pointed at Russia. And I think our allies, particularly Boris Johnson, is working overtime to ensure that Erdogan's objections, or at least the ones he's given to the public, are met. So I think that will take care of itself in the end.
All right, Secretary Robert Wilkie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our correspondent Michael Grimm joins us now to break down more between Russia, Ukraine, and NATO countries. Michael.
Good afternoon, Katrina. And I just want to if I could just add one thing to that. There's a very strong possibility that Turkey is also leveraging this situation to get some more missile defense from the United States and Europe, because obviously they don't want to have a problem with Russia, which still has tremendous capabilities from the air. So that could also be a play. Now, it's extremely important that we notice this is Mariupol, which they have finally, we've been speaking about this now for weeks and weeks and weeks. This is now fully under Russian control. The real question that we've been asking is, how far south does Russia continue to go? We have said many times, we've discussed that Odessa is really the crown jewel. Odessa, however, is naturally fortified. It is very, very difficult, if not impossible, for Russia's ground troops to take Odessa fully. So the next big stop for Russia, they already have Kherson, right? So if they come from Mariupol, in this area here, they've controlled this really since 2014. So all this red you see, the next big stop is Mykolaiv. I spent a tremendous amount of time in Mykolaiv. There was some devastating blows. That's the area where the governor of Mykolaiv, the administrative building, they literally sent a missile right through the building just 2 or 3 days after we interviewed that governor. So Mykolaiv, I think, is going to be your next big hotspot in the south. But as of today, in the last 24 hours, if we can switch to the east, the map in the east will show you that right here, we always speak about it because, again, since 2014, Russia has been here fighting, and it has been a give and take between the Ukrainians and Russian forces. And the Ukrainians, I have to say, have done an outstanding job with what they have against the Russians. Luhansk and Donetsk, that's your Donbass area, and that's where the most contentious fighting, especially northern Luhansk. What's interesting to note is that here, right above in Kharkiv, that was when I was in country, it was almost completely controlled by the Russians. As of today, they have been pushed out, the Russians, all the way back to the Russian border. So the Ukrainians showing significant gains in the north in Kharkiv, while Russia continues to gain in this Donbass region. Here's the question. Do they go, Ukrainians, from Kharkiv and start to push down on the Russian forces, flanking them from the north and making Russia give up some of its gains? Again, I've mentioned this last time. Does this area of the Donbass that's mostly controlled by Russia today, is it a Pyrrhic victory? Do they end up just ceding it back to the Ukrainians as Ukrainian forces regroup, as they come in from Kharkiv that they've just taken better control of, and start pushing down south? They're definitely going to bolster their forces over here in Mykolaiv. So what you're going to see is Ukraine coming from the west, south, in Mykolaiv, going this way, right, towards Mariupol, as Russian forces will head them on. And you'll see Ukrainians coming from the northern area down along this eastern corridor as Russia has control here. Back to you.
Michael, I'd love to take a quick look at what NATO will look like with Finland and Sweden included. I know we have a map there.
Yes. Okay, if we could switch the map for me. So what you have here is, there it is. We have Sweden and Finland, and listen, I have to be honest with you, there's not many people I think that would, off the top of their head, when speaking about Finland, think of Russia. You think of Northern Europe, but it is obviously right on the border with Russia, and that's why the map is so important. But this becomes extremely important for Russia because, as you can see, they're going to be almost completely surrounded by NATO countries. So for Russia, this is exactly what they didn't want. In my humble opinion, and I think many others have spoken about this, the main reason they went to war in Ukraine is not only because they want their resources and deep down Putin wants to restore, the glory days of the USSR, but it's one of the main purposes, prevent Ukraine from becoming a NATO member. So if you have Finland and Sweden become NATO members, this is a complete and utter disaster for Putin. And it's going to be very hard for him to explain politically. So he has a lot of political potential disasters on the horizon, Finland, Sweden being one of them. And now, the problem with the war in Ukraine.
Yeah. All right, Michael, thank you so much. Appreciate the report and the education as well. Thank you.